Hey guys, this is Mike the Detroit Borg with a look at the new Samsung Galaxy Tab 2 10.1 inch. So obviously, as the name suggests, this is the sequel to the original Galaxy Tab, which is also available in a 7-inch version. So really, this isn't a substantial change over the previous model. The big changes here are the fact that they've dropped the price to $399 and it's now equipped with Android 4.0 for a faster and smoother overall performance. Internal specs haven't changed much. We still have a dual-core 1 gigahertz processor, but instead of the Tegra 3, we now have a TI-OMAP processor. We still have 1 gig of internal RAM. We have 16 gigs of standard storage, but you can upgrade it up to 32 gigs thanks to a micro SD card slot. It's available in Wi-Fi only. Currently, no 3G version is planned. Now, we also get a 7,000 milliamp internal battery, and we carry over the same display. So we get a 1280 by 800 TFT LCD display. TFT, thin film transistor, means the same thing for everything. So it's an IPS display, a lot like the original iPad. So of course this won't take on the Retina display of the iPad anytime soon, but will compete with the iPad 2. Now of course there are other features here including Bluetooth, and this has a built-in IR blaster to work with your home theater equipment, and they've included an app for that called Peel. So you can basically use this as your universal remote control. Alright, they've also made some cosmetic changes here, and we'll take a close look at that once we get it out of its box. So let's go ahead and crack into this. So there is our Samsung Galaxy Tab 2 in this little cradle here. So let's lift it up, take it out of its box, and set that aside for just a moment while we take a look inside. So that is our cardboard cradle. So we have a little wall adapter here. Looks like we have the power brick right here. So they give you a universal USB power adapter with this wall adapter, of course, which you can swap out for your region-specific adapter, or of course you can attach an extension cable, snap it into place. There you go. Now, of course, they also give you a data and charging cable. So again, this is just a USB cable with Samsung's proprietary connector. And of course, they give us plenty of literature, including the Health, Safety, and Warranty Guide in multiple languages, Galaxy Tab 2 Quick Start Guide, Galaxy Tab 2 Accessory Guide, and a flyer telling us about Samsung's Media Hub. Alright, so let's get to the star of the show itself, the very reflective Samsung Galaxy Tab 2 10.1 inch. So first, we're going to peel back the plastic, and they give us a nice little tab here. Comes right off. And on the back, we have another protective layer of plastic. There you go. Looks like there's another layer of plastic underneath that. Alrighty, so with all the plastic removed, and I think there are about a dozen pieces of plastic covering just about every corner of this thing, we can take a close look around. So the back panel itself is a plastic. It's titanium color. Has a nice matte finish to it, so it feels pretty nice to hold in the hand. Along the side, we have this shinier, glossy, charcoal color plastic. You can see it wraps the entire bezel of the tablet. So taking a look at the top first, you can see this is where everything happens. So we have our camera up here. This is a 3 megapixel fixed focus lens capable of recording video at 720p. Definitely an unremarkable camera. This is actually carried over from the last generation, and of course no flash. Up here we have the headphone jack, which is kind of precariously located toward the center of the display. Up here we have our IR blaster, our micro SD card slot, so we can pop that off and take a look inside. Pop that back on. We have our volume rocker up here, and then our power or sleep wake button up here. Now we have nothing on the left hand or right hand side of the tablet. On the bottom we have our dock connector as well as a microphone. Now on the front of the device we have these grills for our speakers. So we have a right speaker and a left speaker for stereo sound. So this is quite an improvement over most tablets which put the speaker either at the back or at the side. So instead these speakers are firing right at you, and you have two of them. So you have much better speaker quality thanks to that arrangement. So it looks also kind of unique, and you can see that they've placed the speakers up here toward the top so they don't interfere, or so you don't block them when you're holding the tablet this way. But of course this means there's only really one right way to hold it, as indicated by the Samsung branding at the bottom. And also at the top of the tablet is our VGA camera. Again, just VGA resolution, so that's a sub 1 megapixel camera, as well as an ambient light sensor right next to it. Alright, so let's go ahead and boot this up for the first time. I'm just going to press and hold the power button. And let's take a look at the boot sequence. All right, so now we have our setup instructions here, and of course you can pick the languages you want. I'm going to stick with the United States. We're going to click Start. Now we just need to select our local wireless network, so I'm going to go with my time capsule here, and I need to type in my password. All right, so we just need to set our date and time, and it seems to have done this automatically, so I'm going to go to Next. All right, so we can go ahead and sign in with our Google account. All right, so now I have the option to restore from an existing Android device, and I don't want to do that right now. I just want to take a look at the stock configuration, so I'm going to uncheck these for now and click Next. Next up, it just wants me to agree to use Google location, and that's fine with me. And it knows my name because I've logged into my Google account, so let's agree to that. Your tablet is set up and ready to use, so let's go to Finish. Now taking a close look at the user interface, starting with the lock screen. So on the lock screen, all we have to do is wake it up simply by tapping and swiping left, right, up, or down, and get you into the main home screen. Now here we have Samsung's TouchWiz over Android 4.0. So we have some additions that Samsung has made. They give us 5 home screens that we can swipe through. I've already added a few more, so we're up to 7, and we'll show you how to do that in just a minute. But on the main home screens, we have some apps that Samsung has preloaded, including a calendar, gallery, Polaris Office, Dropbox, the Smart Remote app, which works with that IR Blaster, Amazon Kindle, Netflix, settings. We have a few more here. A Reader's Hub, email, camera app, of course, YouTube, Maps, Internet, or the Android browser, Samsung apps, and Play Store. And of course, they've also included some widgets, including a weather widget and some of Samsung's media widgets, including Game Hub, Media Hub, and Music Hub. Now you can modify these or add additional apps just by going to the upper right hand corner. That will bring us to the apps and widgets. Now if you want to add any of these, all you have to do is tap and hold them. So here we have Google Music, and we're just going to drop this onto, let's go to the next home screen. So let's see if we can swipe to the next one. Oops, too far. Oh, I think I lost it. So let's try again, back to the apps, tap and hold, and let's drop it right there. Now we can also get rid of an app just by tapping and holding it. And up here you can see some options have appeared. So we have Trash Can, which is what we expect, new home page or new home screen, and new folder. So if we go up to it simply brings up some information about the app. Now our next option is to add this to a new home screen, and unfortunately it looks like I've maxed out at 7, so I can't do that. But if you need to create a new home screen, that's an option. And you also have the option to drag this to a new folder. So you can create a new folder. So here we have our folder containing Play Music. If you want to rename it, just tap it, and let's name it Music, and we're done. And of course you can also do this with all the widgets, so just tap and hold them, drag them up, take them to the trash can, and they're gone. Now in the lower left hand corner you see pretty familiar Android controls, so you have back, home, and recent apps. If you tap the recent apps, you can see all your recent apps, and you can swipe to close them or tap to bring them up. Now another key Samsung has included is the screen capture key. So if you tap that, it takes a screen grab of your current screen. So it should come up shortly, and there you go. So you can do a number of things here. You can write on it, and you can save it, you can modify it, crop it, whatever, rotate it, share it, that sort of thing. Now Samsung has also added a series of widgets that you can continue to use no matter what you're doing in the background. So let's test that out. If we tap that arrow key, we get a bunch of them. And you can edit what you want in here. So if you go to edit, you can tap them and it hides them, or you can tap them to bring them forward. Right now all of them are forward, and again these are Samsung widgets. So we're going to click done, and exactly what this is, well, if you bring up a calculator, you can see we have a calculator and we can move it around. Now I can continue to do other things. So for example, if I go to my web browser, and you get the idea, so I can continue to operate with this calculator on top of everything. So that's kind of nice, and that works with several other widgets here. So we have an alarm, we have email, a music player, the calendar, task manager, and world clock. Now in the lower left hand corner we have our notifications, which we can tap to bring up. So here of course we have our time, our battery charge, what network we're connected to, date and time, that sort of thing. We also can toggle Wi-Fi, GPS, our speaker, sync, screen rotation, Bluetooth, notifications, and we can set it to airplane mode. Now we can also change our screen brightness. We can set it to auto. Now we can jump to our settings as well. This takes us right to our system settings. And incidentally here we can see that Samsung has also changed our settings here, so it has this gray and white color instead of the black color that Android 4.0 normally ships with. We also have our media player here, so we can continue to play, skip through music from this control. And we have our notifications here, so we can jump to our notifications. So here we have looks like I have some new songs added to Google Play Music. It'll take me right to Google Play. And of course, because this is Android, we have to have Google Search. So we can either search by text or voice. So let's do voice. Apple. So we get, it looks like it found a contact in my address book for Apple. Now we can also do a web search here. Search the web for Apple. So as you can see, that's actually something called voice actions, which is pretty versatile. So if we go back to home screen, go back to Google, let's tap Wake Me Up at 7:20 a.m. You can see it sets an alarm for 7:20 a.m. We're going to set. We're all set to go. Now, of course, you can do other things like listen to Coldplay. And it brings up my Google Music albums. And here I have Coldplay. And we can play an album. And you can get more specific. You can speak a track name or an album name. And of course, because Android has built-in navigation, we can say things like navigate to the Apple Store. So there we go, we have a map to the nearest Apple Store. Now overall, I think the Galaxy Tab 2 is a mixed bag. There's some strengths and weaknesses. At $399, it is a pretty good deal. I think it's a pretty solid deal for what you get. For me, one of the greatest strengths is the fact that it has these front-firing speakers, and they're stereo speakers, of course. Definitely a big improvement over what most tablet makers are doing, which is copying what Apple does and putting the speaker on the back of the device, which fires toward the back. Obviously, if you're holding it or if it's in a case, that mutes it. So audio quality on the iPad is not very good. This is definitely a big improvement. This is also much lighter weight than most tablets. This is lighter weight than the iPad, the third generation iPad, which comes in at 1.44 pounds, and the iPad 2 is slightly lighter than that. This is not as light as the Asus Transformer Prime at 1.29 pounds, but at 1.3 pounds, 1 ounce isn't too bad. So this is definitely a lightweight tablet. Feels pretty nice to hold, has very nice comfortable corners on it. It's not sharp or anything like that, and that plastic is pretty grippable. Feels pretty nice. Now, of course, the other big drawback here is the camera, which is very poor. That 3 megapixel camera definitely is class trailing overall. There's no autofocusing, there's no flash, there's no stabilization, there's no 1080p recording. It's pretty old. So I'm a little surprised, they're a little disappointed there, but most people obviously don't use their tablet as their camera, but I think a lot of people expect it to be better than that. And of course, the front-facing camera, that VGA camera, could also be better, but it does keep in line with what Apple offers. Now the other problem I have here is the internal specs, which can't quite keep up with the power of Android 4.0. So it tends to be not as smooth performing as some of the other Android tablets, like the Asus Transformer Prime with that Tegra 3 quad-core processor, which actually has a 5th core. This is still two-core, which gives low priority to graphics. So this is not a gaming device. This really is a productivity media device. Now the display does look very bright, very vivid. Again, it's that LCD IPS display. So it looks very good off-axis. I definitely like the display, but it's exactly like the iPad 2. It looks the same. It's a wider aspect ratio, of course, wider and shorter than the iPad 2, but it looks pretty good. Definitely not as good as the Retina display, but nothing does. But this gets pretty close to top quality for this type of device. So again, $399 gets you a reasonable resolution for a device like this. It's bright, clear, colorful, and I definitely can recommend it. So that's going to do for me, guys, in this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next one.